My name is Mila Grant, 27, and I run a photography studio in Chattanooga. I thought my money could hold my family together. I paid their rent, my sister's failed projects, everything. Last Christmas, I poured my heart into a party at my parents' house. I set everything up the table, the gifts, the meal, all with my own money. My sister laughed and told me, "You should leave. No one wants you here." My parents said nothing. I didn't scream or cry. I smiled, walked out, and swore they'd never touch my money again. That night flipped a switch. I'd always been the one fixing their messes, but this betrayal hit different. What led to that moment and what I did next turned our family upside down. Stick around to see how they learned you don't cross the one keeping you afloat. If this drama feels interesting, smash that subscribe button and share it. Let's unravel this story together. Growing up, my sister Nicole Vance always had to outshine me. 5 years older, she filled our Chattanooga home with her loud voice and endless need for attention. I was the quiet one, always trailing in her shadow. At 10, I joined our school's spring fair selling friendship bracelets I'd spent weeks weaving to buy a new journal. My little table had neat rows of colorful threads, each knot tied with care. Nicole, 15 and full of charm, saw my setup and joined the fair. She made flashier bracelets, handed out stickers to draw kids over, and took every sale. My table sat empty. I didn't argue, but I learned to guard my plans. At 12, I earned the lead role in our middle school dance recital. I rehearsed every night, perfecting every spin for the big show. The day before, Nicole, then 17, borrowed my costume for a so-called prank and left it crumpled in her room. I found it hours before the performance, stained and wrinkled. I had to wear a backup dress that barely fit, tripping through my steps, while Nicole grinned from the front row. My parents, James Grant and Barbara Grant, clapped for both of us, never mentioning her stunt. They called it sibling rivalry, letting her steal the spotlight. By 14, I poured my heart into a science fair project, a model solar system I built from scratch. I spent nights researching orbits, painting planets, aiming for first place. Nicole, 19, and home from college, took my sketches, tweaked them, and entered her own version. She won the blue ribbon. I got a pat on the back for effort. Dad shrugged, saying, "There's always next year." Mom nodded along, avoiding my eyes. They never held Nicole accountable. It wasn't just my parents. My Aunt Ellen would visit and laugh off Nicole's antics, calling her a firecracker. I felt like a ghost in my own family, my efforts brushed aside. I started retreating to the garage, where I found Dad's old point-and-shoot camera. Clicking the shutter, framing trees or stray cats through the lens gave me control. I'd spend hours in our backyard capturing shadows and light, building a world where Nicole's shadow couldn't reach. My best friend Kelly Shaw noticed me fiddling with the camera one afternoon. "You've got an eye for this, Mila," she said, lending me her Polaroid to experiment with. Kel's encouragement was a lifeline the first time someone saw me for me. Those years carved a quiet strength in me. Nicole's need to win made me wary, always bracing for her next move. Dad and Mom's silence showed they'd never take my side, too focused on keeping peace. Aunt Ellen's chuckles normalized Nicole's behavior, making me feel smaller, but Kelly's words stuck. We'd sit on her porch, flipping through my grainy photos, her telling me to keep going. I didn't realize it then, but that battered camera was my first step toward my studio. It was also teaching me a harder lesson in my family: I'd always have to fight to be seen. Each time Nicole overshadowed me, it stung less. I stopped expecting fairness from Mom, and Dad stopped hoping Aunt Ellen would call her out. Instead, I leaned into my lens, finding clarity in its focus. By high school, I was sneaking into local art fairs, snapping candids of strangers, building a portfolio in secret. Kelly would tag along, cheering me on, saying my shots captured stories. Those moments weren't just an escape, they were the foundation of who I'd become. Nicole could take the spotlight, but she couldn't touch what I was building inside. By my early 20s, I turned my childhood passion into a photography studio. I'd spent hours with Dad's old camera capturing fleeting moments, stray cats, morning dew kids at the park. At 20, I enrolled in a community college photography course learning lighting and composition while working part-time at a local cafe. I saved every penny, skipping nights out to buy my first professional camera. By 22, I rented a small downtown space barely bigger than a closet and opened my studio. I hustled shooting family portraits, senior photos, even pet sessions, building a name through word of mouth. Clients loved my candid, raw, real moments, and soon I was booked weeks in advance. It wasn't easy. I taught myself editing software, marketed on social media, and handled taxes alone. But seeing my photos on clients' walls made every late night worth it. Kelly, my best friend, joined me at 23, helping with bookings and edits. "You're building something real, Mila," she'd say, organizing my chaotic schedule. Her support kept me grounded. By 24, the studio was thriving enough to pay my rent and start saving. That's when my family's needs crept in. Dad James retired early at 50, citing back issues. He and Mom Barbara couldn't cover their two-bedroom house anymore. I stepped up, paying $1,500 a month for their rent. It felt right at first, like giving back to the parents who raised me. But their calls became routine, less grateful, more expectant, asking if I'd sent the payment yet. Then there was Nicole, my sister. At 30, she was a freelance graphic designer with big dreams but no follow-through. Her pitches, logos, posters, websites rarely landed clients. She'd call asking for $500 a month to keep her business going. I'd transfer the money, hoping she'd turn things around. She didn't. Instead, she'd show up at Mom and Dad's talking up her next big gig while I sat quietly, my bank account thinner. Mom would nod, praising Nicole's hustle, never mentioning my help. Dad would pat my back, saying, "You're doing all right, kid," but never asked about my studio's growth. The weight grew heavier. I felt like their wallet, not their family. Mom's texts always ended with a nudge about bills. Nicole's emails listed expenses like I was her investor. I'd check my savings, shrinking faster than I'd planned, and wonder why I kept agreeing. I wanted harmony to avoid their sighs or guilt trips. But each payment chipped away at my dreams. New lenses, a bigger studio space, maybe a vacation. I'd lie awake tallying what I'd given up. Kelly saw it first. One night, as we sorted client proofs in the studio, she caught me staring at a low bank balance. "Mila, you're burning out," she said, pushing a stack of prints aside. "They're leaning on you too hard." I brushed it off, saying it was temporary. But Kel kept at it, pointing out how I'd skipped equipment upgrades to cover their bills, how Nicole's loans never came back. "You deserve your own life," she'd say, her voice calm but sharp. I wasn't ready to admit she was right. I'd grown up fixing their problems, saying no felt like letting them down. Nicole's requests got bolder. She asked for extra cash for design tools, then spent it on concert tickets. Once she needed $1,000 for a client meeting in Atlanta, swearing it'd land a contract. I paid, but she came back empty-handed, claiming the client flaked. Mom and Dad stayed silent, never questioning her. Aunt Ellen, during her visits, would smile and say, "You're the successful one, Mila. Keep them afloat." It sounded kind, but it trapped me further. My family saw my studio's success as their safety net, not my achievement. By last fall, I was stretched thin. I'd delayed hiring another assistant even as client bookings piled up. My studio was my refuge, but their demands cast a shadow. I'd look at my portfolio, years of work, grit, and late nights, and feel a knot of resentment. Kelly's words rang louder. "Set boundaries, protect your future." I wasn't there yet, but the idea was growing, a quiet spark waiting for the right moment to ignite. Last Christmas was supposed to be our family's fresh start. I'd poured years into my studio, carried Mom and Dad's rent, propped up Nicole's failing designs, all to hold us together. I was drained but hopeful, determined to make our holiday at my parents' Chattanooga home shine. I set everything up, the table, the gifts, the meal, all with my own money. I draped their dining room with a red tablecloth from my studio-arranged pine wreaths and ordered a feast roast ham green beans pecan pie from a local caterer. I wrapped gifts with care: a history book for Dad, a cashmere scarf for Mom, a sketch pad for Nicole's designs. I invited Kelly for support, believing one night could mend our cracks. The house buzzed as guests arrived. Mom fussed over plates, humming carols. Dad strung extra lights, grumbling about tangles. Nicole sauntered in, scrolling her phone, barely glancing at the setup. Aunt Ellen arrived with her daughters Sarah Miller and Emma Miller, my cousins, who chatted loudly about their holiday plans. Sarah, 25, tossed her jacket on a chair while Emma, 23, snapped selfies by the tree. Kelly helped me set out the food, whispering, "You outdid yourself, Mila." I smiled, nerves tight, hoping for warmth. We gathered at the table, candles flickering, plates loaded with steaming dishes. I raised my glass to toast, ready to share a moment of unity. Nicole cut me off, leaning back with a sneer. "You should leave. No one wants you here," she said, her voice sharp and cold. The table went silent. Aunt Ellen let out a quick laugh, then coughed, looking away. Sarah and Emma froze, eyes on their plates. Mom stared at her fork, unmoving. Dad shifted, clearing his throat, saying nothing. The words sliced deep, worse than Nicole's childhood jabs. This was deliberate, meant to humiliate. I waited for someone to speak, to challenge her. No one did. Sarah glanced at Emma, but neither moved. Kelly's hand twitched beside me, her face tight with anger. I didn't yell or cry. I set my glass down, smiled thinly, and stood. "Enjoy your night," I said, grabbing my coat. I walked out the door, clicking shut behind me, their silence deafening. In my car, I opened my banking app with steady hands. I canceled the auto-pay for Mom and Dad's rent. $1,500 a month stopped. I closed the joint account I'd opened for their bills, cutting their access. Then I removed myself as co-signer on Nicole's business loan, $500 a month I'd never recover. Each tap was a release, a reclaiming of my life. I drove to my studio, the city dark and quiet, my resolve hardening like ice. Kelly called as I parked, her voice soft but firm. "I saw it all, Mila. You didn't deserve that," she said. I exhaled, the weight of the night spilling over. She didn't need details. She'd watched Nicole's cruelty, Aunt Ellen's laugh, my cousin's silence, my parents' inaction. "You've carried them too long," she said, her words a balm. "It's time to put yourself first." She reminded me of our talks, how my family took my success for granted. "You're stronger than their mess," she added. I nodded into the phone, her support anchoring me. At my studio, surrounded by my cameras and framed prints, I replayed the moment. Nicole's words echoed her childhood need to overshadow me, but sharper public. Sarah and Emma's silence stung, proof they'd picked sides. Mom and Dad's refusal to speak hurt most, a betrayal carved from years of ignoring Nicole's unfairness. Aunt Ellen's laugh tied it all together. They'd normalized this. Kelly's voice cut through. "Choose yourself." I'd built my studio from grit, yet they saw only what I could pay for. That night, I drew a line. The app confirmed my actions, payments halted, accounts locked. I wasn't just leaving the table, I was done being their crutch. The choice felt right, final, like stepping into my own light. 2 days later, my sister turned our family against me. Nicole's Instagram post popped up on my screen, her words sharp and public, tagging me for all to see. "Mila's too wrapped up in her own world to care about us," she wrote, accusing me of ditching Mom and Dad to live large with my studio. She spun a tale of abandonment, ignoring the years I'd covered their rent and her failed projects. A photo of me at a client shoot smiling was captioned, "Family, last ego first." My throat tightened, but I didn't hit back. Nicole fed on arguments I wouldn't bite. Her post lit a spark. Mom jumped in, commenting, "We deserved better, Mila." Dad added a curt, "You've chosen yourself over us." Aunt Ellen tossed in a disappointed face emoji, writing, "Thought you were different." Sarah and Emma, my cousins, fueled the fire. Sarah with a, "This isn't right," And Emma adding, "You've let them down." Their words piled up under Nicole's post, a public wall of blame. I scrolled each comment a fresh cut, none mentioning the money I'd poured into their lives for years. The onslaught spread beyond Instagram. Mom texted me that morning. "You've embarrassed us, Mila, putting your business first." Dad called, his tone clipped, saying I'd forgotten what family means while chasing success. He never brought up the thousands I'd sent for their home. Aunt Ellen sent a text, her words heavy. "You've lost your way, Mila." Sarah called, voice sharp, saying, "You're not the sister we thought." Emma caught me at a downtown cafe, her eyes narrow, whispering, "You've torn us apart." Their accusations mirrored Nicole's, a united front that ignored my sacrifices. I sat in my studio, the glow of my editing screen dim against their words. Kelly, who'd watched it all unfold at Christmas, called that night. "They're piling on Mila, but they're wrong," she said, her voice a steady anchor. I shared Emma's cafe confrontation, Mom and Dad's texts, the Instagram comments. "They're lashing out because you stood up," Kel said. "You don't owe them your life." Her words eased the sting, reminding me I'd done enough. She'd seen their betrayal firsthand, and her support kept me grounded. Then their tune changed. Nicole called that evening, her voice low and shaky. "Mila, I'm in a bind," she said, asking for $500 to keep her apartment, claiming a client flaked. Her Instagram post still burned in my mind. Mom texted next. "We need the house payment, Mila. Can you help?" Her words softer now, asked for the $1,500 I'd always covered. Dad left a voicemail, his tone pleading. "We're counting on you, kid. Just the rent, please." Nicole texted again, promising to sort things out if I sent the money. Their requests, so quick after their attacks, felt like a trap to pull me back. I stayed silent. Nicole's post had rallied Mom, Dad, Aunt Ellen, Sarah, and Emma against me, their words painting me as a heartless outsider. Yet now, Mom, Dad, and Nicole wanted my money, as if their blame could be erased with a bank transfer. I'd spent years believing my support would earn their love, but their accusations showed otherwise. Kelly's voice lingered. "You're allowed to walk away." In my studio, surrounded by photos I'd poured my heart into, I felt a quiet resolve. I'd left their Christmas table, ignored their posts, and now I let their pleas go unanswered, choosing my peace over their demands. 2 months later, Nicole thought she could charm her way back. She strolled into my Chattanooga studio, her smile bright but calculated. "Mila, I need your 3D printer for a small project," she said, spinning a tale about a client wanting custom keychains for a local event. Her tone was sweet, a stark contrast to her Christmas insults and December Instagram posts. I hesitated, remembering her refusal to return my support, but agreed, hoping a small favor might keep the peace. The printer, a high-end model for my studio's design work, came with a condition: return it in 3 days. Nicole nodded eagerly, carting it off with a quick, "Thanks, sis." 3 days became 5, then a week. Nicole ignored my texts, her phone sending me straight to voicemail. I checked her social media, spotting photos of intricate keychains clearly made with my printer posted without a mention of me. My frustration grew. Kelly, my studio assistant and best friend, caught the issue during a supply check. "Mila, the 3D printer's still with Nicole," she said, pulling up Nicole's Instagram on her phone. The posts showed off her new venture, all using my equipment. I called Nicole, my voice firm, demanding the printer back by noon the next day. She brushed me off, saying, "It's just a machine, Mila, chill." I didn't argue. I drove to her place that evening, loaded the printer into my car, and updated my studio's access codes to lock her out. Nicole's reaction came fast. The next morning, she showed up at my studio, pounding on the locked door as a client waited for a photo session. "You're disloyal." "Mila," she screamed, her voice carrying across the street. "You're sabotaging my work, hoarding your tools." Her outburst drew eyes, clients, passers-by, a barista from the cafe next door. I stood inside, keeping my composure, and asked her to leave through the glass. She kept shouting, accusing me of betraying her dreams, her hands waving wildly. A regular client waiting for her prints pulled out her phone and started recording. "This is going online," she muttered, uploading the video to a Chattanooga community forum with the title "Drama at Local Studio." The post went live before Nicole stormed off. Kelly was by my side as the video spread. "She's digging her own hole, Mila," she said, her tone steady as we watched the forum thread grow. She'd seen Nicole's posts, heard her shouts, and knew this was another attempt to exploit me. "You don't have to keep giving her chances." Kel added, her words echoing the resolve I'd felt since Christmas. I nodded, thinking of the years I'd let Nicole take Money Time Now equipment. The printer back in my studio hummed as it worked on a client's order. Mom, Dad, Aunt Ellen, Sarah, and Emma didn't call or text about the incident, their silence as expected as their earlier blame. I focused on my work, my studio, bustling with clients who valued my effort, not my family's drama. The day ended quietly, but the video was out there, shared across the forum. Nicole's words, "disloyal, sabotaging," rang in my head, but I felt no guilt. She'd taken my trust again, and I'd taken it back. My studio, my rules, my boundaries held firm. Kelly stayed late, helping me reorganize the equipment. "You're building something real here," she said, gesturing to the photos lining my walls. I smiled, knowing she was right. The printer was mine, my studio was mine, and my choice to stand firm was mine. Nicole's scene was her own making, captured for all to see, but I let it go, focusing on the life I was creating, one frame at a time. The days after I chose my future over my family, I took the $5,000 I'd once sent to Mom, Dad, and Nicole and poured it into my Chattanooga studio. I bought a new camera, a high-end model that sharpened my portrait work, and launched a photography class for local high school students, teaching them to capture their world through a lens. I hired a new assistant, a single mom named Clara, whose steady hands and warm smile became a studio staple. The investment paid off. Clients poured in, drawn by word of mouth and my growing reputation. I planned a community photo exhibit showcasing local stories through my shots, set for a spring opening at a downtown gallery. My studio thrived, its walls lined with vibrant prints, its calendar packed with bookings. Families came for portraits, businesses for headshots, and teens for my classes, their enthusiasm fueling me. The exhibit took shape with photos of Chattanooga's parks, faces, and moments, each frame a piece of the community I'd grown to love. Clara's knack for scheduling kept us on track, and my new camera caught details I'd never seen before. The studio wasn't just a business, it was my proof that I could build something lasting without carrying my family's weight. Nicole faced her own reckoning. Her outburst at my studio, captured on video and shared on a local forum, turned heads for all the wrong reasons. Clients who'd once considered her for freelance work pulled back her posts, now ignored or criticized. She struggled to book gigs, her name tied to that public meltdown. Later, I heard she'd left Chattanooga for another city, seeking a fresh start. She never reached out, and I didn't chase her. Her accusations of disloyalty, once shouted through my studio's glass, faded into silence. Mom and Dad, too, felt the shift. Without my monthly $1,500, their landlord seized their house. They moved into a smaller apartment, a cramped one-bedroom they could afford on their own. Barbara took a part-time job at a grocery store, her hands scanning items for hours. James picked up odd jobs, mowing lawns, driving for delivery apps, piecing together enough to cover their bills. I learned this from a neighbor, not from them. They didn't call, and I didn't expect them to. Their silence matched Aunt Ellen, Sarah, and Emma's, who'd backed Nicole's blame, but never apologized. The community, though, spoke up. Neighbors who'd seen Nicole's video rallied around me, booking sessions and spreading the word about my exhibit. Clients like Mrs. Carter, whose wedding photos I'd shot, sent messages of support, calling Nicole's actions unfair. Others, from baristas to teachers, praised my work on local forums, their words a shield against my family's past attacks. Their support wasn't just kind, it was a reminder that I'd earned my place in Chattanooga through effort, not obligation. I cut all ties with my family. When Nicole's texts came asking for one last favor, I blocked her number. Mom's voicemails, soft with pleas, went unanswered. Dad's emails hinting at their struggles stayed unopened. Aunt Ellen, Sarah, and Emma sent nothing, their absence a final confirmation of their choice. I'd spent years trying to hold them together, believing my money and time would earn their love. Now I saw the truth: their loyalty was to my support, not me. Cutting them off wasn't easy, but it was right. Kelly, my rock, saw it all. "You're free now, Mila," she said one evening, helping me frame photos for the exhibit. Her words rang true. Setting boundaries had cost me my family, but it gave me clarity. I lived for my values: hard work, community, creativity, not their demands. My studio, my classes, my exhibit were my future, built on my terms. To everyone who's followed this story, thank you for listening. Placing boundaries, let me reclaim my life, and I hope it inspires you to prioritize your own path. Share your thoughts. What would you have done? Your voice matters.